everyone, so today is gonna be a French lesson and this is our third lesson together. If you haven't seen my two first videos, they will be linked in the description box below. They will open on the window so you can click on them right now. Okay, so today's lesson is pretty important. It's about French verbs and how you can recognize them, how you can conjugate them. So here we go. So in French, like in other languages, for example in Japanese and in Spanish, I'm pretty sure, verbs are not all the same, they don't conjugate the same, and you can know how to conjugate them if you know which group they belong to. So in French, there are three groups of verbs, the first group, the second group, and the third group. And depending on which group the verbs belong to, the conjugation is going to be different. So you have to learn how to recognize a verb, how to identify the group that belongs to in order to conjugate them. So it's pretty simple, okay? For the two first groups, the third group is going to be a bit more complicated, but it's going to be okay. Okay, so the first group is called the group of the verbs which end in E and R, ER in French, except for one verb, which is the verb aller, which means to go. So, apart from this verb, all the verbs that ends with E and R belong to the first group. You just have to learn the conjugation of the first group in order to be able to conjugate all of the verbs that ends with E and R, which is pretty awesome, right? So, for example, I'm going to take the verb manger, which means to eat, one of my favorite things to do. Okay, so to conjugate a verb in French, you just have to take the radical, which is what you're left with once you get rid of, the E and R form. So here it's mange, and then you just have to put all of the endings that correspond to the pronouns, which I talked about in my last video, and you're basically have your verb conjugated. It's easy. So it's je mange with an I, tu manges with I and S, il, elle, on mange, I again. So it's very simple. I, es, and I. And then nous mangeons. So you just have to remember O and S. And if there is a I to nous mangeons, it's only because J plus O in French makes go. So in order to have the sound jon, you just put a I, but it's not a part of the conjugation ending, Vous mangez, I and Z, and il, elle mange, I and T. So you just have to remember I, es, I, ONS, I and Z, and then I and T. Pretty simple. And now if you learn all of that, you can conjugate all of the verbs that ends with E and R. Yay! So the second group is pretty easy as well, but a little bit more tricky. So all of the verbs that ends with E and R in French, or I and R in English, okay? So except there is a little rule. It's all the verbs that ends this way, but that turns into ison when conjugated with the pronoun nous. For example, mourir, which means to die. Sorry, I'm gonna take a happier example. Courir, which means to run. And finir, which means to end, to finish. Okay, so these two verbs, first, when you look at them, you think, oh, I and R, E and R. Okay, it's great. Second group. It's not really correct. For finir, it's right, but for courir, it's wrong. Okay, so for courir, it's not right because you don't say nous courissons, but nous courons. Yeah. The only way you can know that is because you've encountered the verb before or because you've learned it by heart before, but it's pretty easy. So finir, which means to end, to finish. Je finis. Once again, is. Tu finis. Is as well. Il, elle finit. Ite. Very important. Is, ite. Nous finissons. That's the most important part of this second group conjugation because it proves you that this is really a verb of the second group. So nous finissons, ils sont, I-S-S-O-N-S, okay? Vous finissez, I-S-S-E-Z, and ils, elles finissent, I-S-S-E-N-T. So it's pretty simple. I-N-S, I-N-S, I-N-T, I-S-S-O-N-S, I-S-S-E-Z, I-S-S-E-N-T. And ta-da! You know how to conjugate the verb of second group. Yay! Okay, so here we go on to the third group. The third group is pretty difficult because there's no real conjugation for this one. Basically, in this category, in this group, all of the verbs that don't end with E and R, or that end with I and R, but don't transform into a verb that ends with ils sont when used with nous, belong to the third category, the third group. For example, prendre, which means to take, courir, as I said, which means to run, dormir, which means to sleep. Basically, lots of verbs end in E and R, so lots of verbs are easy to conjugate. There are actually few verbs in the third category, but you just have to learn the conjugation by heart because it's kind of different from each of them, you know. Anyway, it's kind of easy as well. It's always the same thing, kind of. For example, the first person, je, always kind of take an S for the verbs of the third group. An S as well for tu, a T or nothing for il, elle, on. For nous, it's always ONS. Always, guys. For vous, it's always E and Z as well. And for il and elle of plural, it's kind of always ENT as well. So it's pretty easy. The big lines are always the same. There's just some little adjustments you need to make and to learn by heart, you know. But apart from that, it's pretty easy, right? So this is all for that lesson, really. It's kind of a big thing, so learn by heart the conjugation endings of the first and second group. Learn by heart some of the conjugation of some verbs of the third group, and you'll be able to basically conjugate most of the verbs of the French language, which is awesome. Okay, yeah, okay. So I hope you enjoy watching this video, guys. It's pretty short, but that's because that's kind of it, really. And I hope it was useful and helpful for some of you. If you have any questions, as I said, feel free to ask me, and I will talk to you soon, guys. Bye!